Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
It's been very difficult to find someone that knows about the pivot hinges. I was looking at one of your videos, and I was looking at some of the hinges that you guys have. So I'd like to find out what would be the right one for the door that I have, and how much would it cost.
What is it? Okay, sure. So tell me what you're dealing with.
It's a door. It's actually made out of 8 pieces of 12 by 2. So the height is about 8 feet by 5 feet, and the frame it's about 3 inches thick or 3 inches wide. And I'm trying to, the hinges that I have there, I have commercial hinges, but because the post is actually for the backyard door. The post is embedded in cement, but because there's nothing holding it on top, although there's actually a 4x4 there, when I open the door kind of like drags a little bit, at some point drags on the floor. So I was looking at the pivot hinges, and I think that something like that would be a good idea to stop the door from sloping down as it opens up.
Okay, what is currently the hardware that you have that's hanging in the door?
I have about 8 commercial hinges on the frame and the door.
And the door sags.
Yes. But like I said, once the door opens up, then it kind of like starts going down, and at a certain point starts dragging on the floor, which means obviously the post itself is not supporting it as well. I do have cement on the floor, so that's why I figure I was looking into, what is it, the 147 offset. It's a very heavy door, so, or the 117, I'm not quite sure.
How heavy is the door?
The door, it's quite heavy. It's probably over 120, 130 pounds.
Oh, okay. So that's
maybe a bit more.
Yeah, that's exceptionally light. If that's the thickness of, if that's the weight of the door, then very light. So you've got a 5-foot door, 8-foot. You want to use an offset pivot. Okay. Is there a header involved?
What do you mean by the header?
Well, when you walk through a door, you've got your 2 jambs, and then you've got the thing above. That's the header. Is there a header in this gate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
What's everything made of? I mean, what I mean to say is, what is the header made of?
The header on the posts are all 4x4 outdoor wood, treated wood.
Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, the door's exceptionally light. If you want to pull all those hinges off and put a pivot, I don't really see a problem. You said a 147?
I was looking. I was looking at. I'm estimating the door. It's about 140. When we were putting it up, it was quite heavy for 3 of us to hold it and put it in there. So it could be a little bit more. But I understand out of the 117, I think that holds up to 300 pounds. The 147 up to 600 pounds. So I think any of these would be more than sufficient, right?
Well, I'm not. A patent, yes, I'm not comfortable with. I don't believe that your door is only 120 pounds, because I could lift that myself.
Right.
So I think you need to be calculating what the actual door weight is. And if I was going to guess, knowing what 2x12s weigh, I would guess that you're going to probably want to go with like the 147. But you said that it was 3-inch thick?
Well, the frame of the door, it's 3-inch thick. It has the 12 by 2. Like I said, it has 8 of them, and then the frame itself has a 1 by 3. But in order to make the door straight so it won't warp, we put 2x4s on the inside, and then to cover the 2x4s on the edge. That's when I framed it with the 1x3.
How thick is the door?
like I said, it's about 3 inches.
3 inches the
On the
door
frame.
thickness. Okay. So,
Yes.
I mean, ideally you would have a pivot manufactured so that the bottom arm was residing underneath the center line of that 1.5 inches. That would be the correct way to do it. The 147 standard is going to have that arm biased quite, close to the pull side. You could go with an 1.5 inch offset, but that will substantially reduce the weight rating. But it will move your arm closer to the center underneath the door. So, what I would like to know and to see would be an absolute weight of the door, and then I'd like to see photographs of your current installation so that I could make a single suggestion to you. If I was going to guess based on what I know, I would probably go with the 147 1.5 inches is probably what I would use.
Right. All right. I mean, if you wanna, I don't know if you want to give me a phone number and email where I can mail you the picture of the door.
Definitely. Yeah, the email actually.
Sure.
It's
Hold
the
on
word.
1 second.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm actually just finding the door so I can email it directly to you. Okay, email. Okay, what's the email address?
Sales, SALES.
Sales.
At. Now it's the same as the website, which is A as in architectural.
A, B.
Yes, sir.
Supply?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on. A, B. Supply.
.net.
What next? Oh, .net? Oh,
yes,
okay.
Sir.
So, sales at absupply.net? That's
yes,
it?
sir. That's all.
Okay. Carlos, I'm putting my name on it so you know which one it is. I'm sending it to you right now.
So when I get back to my desk, I'll be able to review that and I'll communicate back to you.
Sure. Now, the picture that I sent you is the front, actually. Maybe I should take a picture of the back of it so you can take a look as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see everything if you can.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll mail them to you. And if you want, I'll include my phone number so you can call me back if you like.
You bet. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. What is your name?
Richard. Would you like to take a moment and talk about your gate?
Sure.
Okay. So I've looking at all of your photographs. I really don't think that the hinges are the problem, and using a pivot I don't think is going to solve the problem in the sense that is it possible that when your door is open to 90 degree, is the entire structure tipping forward because of that massive amount of weight?
Well, that's the reason why it's moving forward. That's the reason why the door scratches the floor, which is the reason because originally, actually, from the beginning, I wanted to do the pivot. That was the idea. Because as you can see, there's cement on one side. Obviously, it's not cement on all of it. I'm working on the backyard little by little, so I'm doing all this work. So I wanted to set up that I build a door, but I didn't just want to leave it there because we got a dog, and I didn't want the dog to come out of the yard and all that stuff. So that's why I put the door, and I put it on there. I realize now that maybe I could have put the hinges on the other side, which is attached to the cement brick. So this way that wouldn't happen. But from the beginning, the idea was to set up the door with the pivot hinge. So I kind of like put those hinges temporarily, and because I also couldn't find, I kept asking, nobody knew about pivot hinges, nobody sold them. So that's why I started doing a little bit more research. But in the meantime, that's why I put those regular commercial hinges.
Yeah, and so what you could the problem is going to be this: if you were to go with a pivot, the earth is going to carry all of that weight. And my concern, though, is will that be adequate enough to prevent that whole the lath and the door from tipping forward a little bit? I'm concerned that it might still move a small amount. So, but because the top pivot is going to still be carrying some of the load when the doors open at 90, in the sense that the door is going to want to come out a little bit because of that. Although the truth of the matter is you have 8 hinges. It's known that the majority of weight of a door is held by the top hinge. So 70% of the weight of the door is pulling on the top part of your 4x4 post. If you were to relocate that to the ground and let that do probably 90% of the work, it will probably solve the problem. So I agree that a pivot is likely to solve the problem. The concern would be when I look at your photographs, it's unclear to me if you have a substantial amount of base to attach a pivot to. So that bottom concrete area where you've poured for the post would have to be rendered flat and suitable to attach the pivot to.
Right. Well, that's originally I thought, I can't really do a pivot hinge on the center, because if you look at the floor, half of it is concrete, half of it is ground, just dirt. Yeah. That's the reason why I was thinking maybe it can be done with the what's the word that I'm looking for? Not in the center, but like what's the word? How you call it when the hinge is not in the center? Offset. Yeah, exactly. So this way, the offset on the hinge would be attached to the concrete, which is about 4 inches of concrete that is there, and that I think it would probably be there. So the door would actually open from the other side and not from the way that it's on the picture. Yeah. So that means the lock. If you look at the picture of the door, right now the lock and it's on the right side. The hinges are on the left. So then, if I do the pivot hinge, then the lock would be on the left side of the door, and the door would open up that way. Yeah. Would that work at all, or no?
Well, I think that it would. I mean, because you're going to have something that's not going to move on you at all.
Right.
So I think that would work. I would also say that it may not. Are you going to increase the width of your concrete your walkway?
Eventually, yes. Yes,
okay.
Because obviously I need to allow for the door to open and close and everything. Yes.
Yeah, if you did that and you swung the door against the house, I think you'd be okay. I do like the way it swings now, however.
I do. Yeah, the problem is that at the bottom floor I have tenants, and they actually put an air conditioner on that window. So when you open it the way that it is now, you kind of hit the air conditioner a little bit, although it's a big door. But right now, I guess it doesn't open completely because it's hitting the floor. But but I guess if that's why I was thinking maybe the offset pivot hinge would work better. So this way it'll open up the other way. It'll open up against the house, and the middle post will not lean because now the weight. Yeah, exactly. There's no weight on it, so the weight would be on the concrete and on the hinge.
Yeah, if you're going to reverse it to the other side. Having said that, though, if you were to reverse it and your posts, your jamb that's there, I don't think you would need to use a pivot because that 4x4 you've got, it's obviously clearly securely mounted to the house. Since that post isn't going to move, you could probably just reuse the pivot or the hinges that you already paid for. You could also consider a continuous geared aluminum hinge because that will very well distribute the weight over the height of the door.
Yeah. Right. But
you kind of already have that, though.
Yeah, but you also have to admit that the pivot hinge looks much better, though. right?
Oh, it's super cool. Of course,
Exactly.
you won't see it. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And that's kind of like what I like. I put these hinges temporarily, but that's kind of like what I like. That the fact that the pivot hinge makes it look cooler.
yeah. The other, yeah. So I think hanging it off that post, which is going to deflect slightly,
Yeah.
forever. You might seek either a pivot on that side or just go to the permanent solution. Swing against the house. You're going to widen your walkway. It's going to be beautiful, and
Right.
that might be what you'd do.
Yeah, exactly. How much? What would be the price of if I wanted to continue doing the pivot hinge? What would be the price of the set?
I've got your email. I'll send you a link to a pivot that I would consider.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
And then just I know that there's a right swing and left swing, so just consider that if I do that, I would put the hinge on where the concrete is right now, and then the door would sort of open up sort of towards the house.
Yeah, it'd be what we'd call a right-hand reverse.
Right hand reverse. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Thanks for taking my call. I'll send you an email.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. So the telephone conversation that we've just listened to, this application is not uncommon. A lot of people are building just out of regular lumber from the local lumber yard or home improvement store. Custom gates. It's simple. It's straightforward. People are fastening the material with either drywall screws or, it'd be preferable to use stainless, perhaps lag bolts. But they always come into, after they've come up with the design, the realization that, oh gosh, now I have to swing this thing. And when I first spoke to the client, you may recall that he thought the weight was maybe 125 pounds or thereabouts. Well, this is far in excess of that. This is a very heavy door. And as we look through the images that the client provided to us, we'll see details of construction. This is obviously the through bolt for the pull handle, and this is the rubbing condition that he's having. Obviously looking from the egress side, showing us the edge of the door here. The ingress side, lock side of the egress side. His hinges, several and many. Now, when the client said they used 8 hinges. I would have put, I would have biased it closer to the top. But the bottom line is, when I first saw these images, I said to myself, well, all of this weight, when you bring that all the way out and it's out here, that's going to make that 4x4 post tip out just a little bit, and that's got to be the problem. And as you heard, when I mentioned that to the client, they said yes, that's what's causing the problem. So the idea was to pivot it here. I was imagining the client wanted to pivot it here, and I think it would work because this concrete that I imagine he poured for the post, if he can level that off, that's going to carry the majority of the weight right down here. Okay. But as you can tell from the conversation, the client really wants to pivot it over here. And that will solve the problem that they were talking about of it hitting the air conditioner. So the door is going to come out and reside within this space and not hit this air conditioner. My only concern, obviously, with that is what has to be done down here. It looks like there's a not insignificant gap here. So the client will have to build off of the bottom here to get that pivot installed. So the question ultimately becomes is what pivot should be used. And I like all people really who make pivots. ABH is one that comes to mind. They're a company that is one that I'm I'm partial to is the term I was looking for. And it's because we were maybe their second sales call when they started business back in about 1992 or so in the Chicago area. Well, which pivot is the one to use? And obviously it has to be an offset pivot because of the thickness of the door and how they have built the unit. So what I'm saying is they have a jamb And they've got that big giant door sitting in here. And if you look at the pictures, the margin is very tight. So there's no way to get a center hung pivot working in here and get that to rotate quickly or correctly, because this corner here and here is going to hit the jamb. Had they built the gate radiused, they could have done that, you know, more like that. But you've got to go with an offset, and the offset's going to put the pivot point here. Okay, the vertical axis of pivoting. And you'll have the mounting down, and that door will swing out like that. Then here's this perpendicular wall. Okay, so offset. So the question is, and I think he said the thickness of the door was 3 inch. I believe that's what it was. So what I'd like to use would be an offset pivot, but I'd like to use one that is more than the standard 3/4 offset. And when I say offset, the dimension from the center line of the pivot to the face of the door is either 3/4 or 1.5 inches. I'd like to use 1.5 inches just to get the arm centered better underneath the door to carry the load a little bit better. So the one that I would suggest we would use would be the 0147, and that we would do that with the 1.5 inch offset, and that would be the item right here. 0147 1.5 inch offset. That's going to be from the face of the door to the vertical axis. It'll be 1.5 inches. And let's take a look at the template. And I'll just go to the manufacturer's site because I will be able to find it quicker, I believe. 0147 1.5 inch offset. Downloads. Template. Now, here's what we're dealing with. There's your 1.5 inches from the face of the door to the center line. So the client can make the face of the door to the center line, say 3/4, and just move that arm back, and that would be better. Now, when you use a 1.5 inch offset, you do decrease your load rating of what the pivot can handle because of how it's, you know, substantially offset. Now, why do they normally use offset pivots? That's simply to allow the installer to contend with a wall condition. So if I had applied molding here and I wanted my door to get out and around that 0 degree, 90 degree, 180 degree, I need a greater offset. So my pivot point will allow that door to get out and around the thickness of this. That's why a greater offset is used. But I do like to use them when I'm within the weight range to get that arm underneath the door further when I'm dealing with an unusual door thickness. This is 3 inch and will be better served. They say that the weight rating of this is 350 pounds. That's going to be copacetic with all that 2x12 material that the client has built this custom door out of. You know, great idea with the hinges, but as I had said on the telephone call, all of the weight, 70% of the weight, in fact, is being held up here. So really, this top hinge is doing by far the majority of the work right here. It doesn't really matter because where the weight's, you know, being born when it's hinges, because you're still going to pull that post, tip it out a little bit because it's going to flex. Even a steel post would have flexed or so slightly, would be my opinion. Getting the majority of weight borne down here, I think, would solve the problem, but it does sound like the client wants to move his pivot point over here and then dress this off with a wider walkway, pour concrete. And at that point, I think it'd be really nice. I think it would work nice. Although I like the way it swings now, just because that's, you know, probably mimicking standard behavior. So, if you have any questions on my suggestion here or would like to discuss it, please feel free to reach out. My name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and thank you. If you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please click subscribe as well, and even share the video with someone that you know. And if you have any questions for a future video, please send them our way and we will make every attempt to oblige. And thank you very much.